Welcome to the most northerly doctor in Britain podcast, produced by Michelle Langthorne. That's me. We will dive into insightful diary extracts recorded by Dr. Anne Marshall as she documents her extraordinary time as a sole GP providing routine and emergency care to the 632 inhabitants of Unst, located in Shetland. We listen together and then the reflection and conversation starts. Episode 1, Countdown begins.
It's taken 12 months to get to this point, and I can't believe that we're finally setting off next week on this adventure for my GP sabbatical. And it's taken a lot of preparation, and actually I've been surprised at how the preparation has been a huge part of the journey to get to this point. So it started 12 months ago, speaking to a GP friend of mine, talking about the state of general practice and how I was feeling quite jaded with everything after COVID and looking at another 8-10 years before potential retirement, doing the same thing. And I just fancied a change in a safe way without giving up potentially my excellent partnership that I've got in Wareham and Dorset. And she said, why don't you do a sabbatical? Which just sowed the seed, having never done one before. And in our partnership agreement we can have 6 weeks off to do a sabbatical. So I looked at the partnership agreement, worked out what I could do, and thought about what I would like to spend the time doing. And I've always wanted to use my medical degree to do something different, to make a difference, to do something adventurous. And these seeds were sown when I went to Sheffield Medical School, which was quite an adventurous type of place on the Peak District with a very good outdoor lifestyle. I fancied the idea of working within the United Kingdom, but somewhere remote, and to experience medicine in a different way. So I emailed various people in NHS Scotland, and after a few rejections finally found the right person. And it's always a case of finding the right person for these things. And very helpful lady called Lisa from NHS Shetland, who was very encouraging and advised what was on offer. And she suggested that I could work either on a remote island or one of the mainland practices on Shetland. And I felt that if I was going to do this properly and go whole hog, I wanted to work in the most remote place possible. So that's when I agreed on Unst, which is the northernmost Shetland Islands and the northernmost GP practice of the British Isles. And following on from that, once that was firmed up, I realised that I really needed to update myself in terms of emergency medicine, managing acutely unwell people and stabilising them. And one of the things that was mandatory was attendance at a pre-hospital emergency care course, which I went up to Luton in June this year to do, which was terrifying and fun at the same time. And on this course I met a really lovely GP who works as a musculoskeletal specialist and sports events doctor up north, who very kindly has allowed me to go to one of the courses he helps run, called an ILS course, which is where I'm headed up to tonight to attend the course tomorrow. So I'm staying at his house tonight and then attending the course tomorrow, and that will be my final piece of preparation. And it just made me think about how you put yourself out there, you do things outside of your comfort zone, and it leads to further opportunities and meeting people, and it's almost always a positive thing. I've also done a lot of other preparation, including doing some voluntary shifts in A&E, which was hugely out of my comfort zone, but on reflection thoroughly enjoyable. And I've actually since signed up for some urgent care shifts that GPs can do locally in Dorset, so I'm hoping to do some of those quite a journey just to get to this point, and it's been reinvigorating for my career as a GP to realise that I can still learn new things or relearn old skills, and that my life doesn't necessarily have to be the same. My professional life doesn't necessarily have to be the same for the next 8-10 years, which has been refreshing and quite motivating. So only a few more days left before me and my husband leave to go up north, and my feelings are a mixture of fear, nervousness, anxiety, imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough, I haven't got enough skill, to excitement and what an opportunity, and if I don't do this I'll regret it, and I'm hoping it will give me some great experience and great memories, and who knows what doors it'll open for me, like the preparation has done for me so far. So can't wait for next week, but also I am very anxious about it. Here goes.
So we've just listened to that. I mean, that was amazing, apart from the indicator that went on forever. Tell me, which road were you on, Anne?
I remember it quite clearly. It was a road coming out of Wareham, heading up to the A35, I think it was, and having to wait at a junction for quite a long period of time.
Yeah, no, that was excellent. But more importantly, though, I think from what I picked up, was you seem, there's that nervous, you are anxious, but there's an excitement to everything. It's more a tone of excitement. You were very measured, but I could, it was palpable.
Definitely, and it's really, really nice to be able to hear it again and listen back, and just to remember what that feeling was like. I was really excited, but also really nervous at the same time. Nervous of the unknown mainly, but it was a good feeling, and I've not had that for a long time in my job.
It was almost like it had shaken something. I don't know. To me, it felt like you were talking about new doors opening. It was injecting you with an enthusiasm for like you said, for your job that perhaps hadn't been lacking, but I don't know. What do you think? That was just a sense of adventure?
I think it was partly that, partly just meeting new people who've done lots of different things. And I think in general practice, it's very easy just to work in your practice for years on end and never really get outside of that bubble. And it is very much a GP bubble sometimes. So it was really nice to just get outside of that and just, for example, the GP who was the musculoskeletal specialist that I met, who'd done some really interesting work and had worked with the British cycling team, things like that. And people on the course, what's called the basics course, the pre-hospital care course, meeting people on that who've done all sorts of interesting things. So it just enthused me again and reminded me that medicine can be this ticket to adventure if you choose it to be.
And that was before you'd even got to Unst. And interestingly, we had a bit of a conversation off the as we were listening, because you pronounced it Unst, and I thought, oh, is it Unst or Unst? And so before you went there, you weren't pronouncing it right.
Well, I wasn't really sure how to pronounce it. But
when
it
did
seems,
that?
Well, when I got there, it seems that all the locals pronounce it Unst.
But sort of going back to what this is all about, which is the precursor to you actually going up there, the training you had to do. You have, as a result of doing that, changed the way you work, because you've added an evening to your working week. Tell us about that.
Yes, so as I mentioned in the audio diary, I've signed up for the Urgent Treatment Centre, which is basically a clinic attached to Poole Hospital in the miners part of A&E, where GPs work in the clinic, and I do a 4-hour shift once a week on a Friday evening. And you see patients who are pitch up to A&E who perhaps don't really need A&E, who could be dealt with by a GP. So I see probably 30% of my shift would be those patients, and then the rest would be patients usually booked by 111 who are acutely unwell but perhaps don't need to be in A&E. So it's just been a new string to my bow, really, just something a bit different.
But interestingly, having listened to your diary, you kind of made that decision then, as we said. So
Yeah.
I mean, this really has been a life changer and a career changer.
Definitely, and I really don't think I would have signed up for those shifts had I not done the preparation for the sabbatical. There's no way I would have done that.
Is there anything else you think we can talk about off the back of that before we listen to the next extract?
And I suppose the A&E part of it, we just sort of glossed over, but for me that was really getting out of my comfort zone, and I think that was possibly the hardest part of the preparation.
Well, let's talk about that, because I do remember your blog, although I know you would be able to do this, you got out of practice with a number of procedures that would be, I guess, every day in A&E.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, the last time I worked in A&E was sort of mid-late 90s, so it's quite a long time ago. And things obviously change and move on, although there's a certain number of practical skills that are still the same. So I just wanted to go back in and refresh some of those skills, like putting cannulas in, which is where you put a little needle and a plastic tube into a vein so you can give intravenous fluids or antibiotics or whatever. So I refreshed that skill, which was reassuring.
Is it like riding a bike, though?
I think it probably is once you've done a number. So, you know, in my junior doctor years, when we were working our 100-hour weeks, we put a lot of cannulas in. So, you know, yes, I was very skilled at it back then, but obviously there's been a long period of time where I've not had to do that.
But did you have that eureka moment as you were sort of practicing?
Yeah, yeah, basically.
I can do this. I remember this.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was the proper preparation for you before you went on this adventure. So just tell me, after that then, you had how many days before you left for the Shetlands?
So after that final course, I think that was possibly on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, and then we went the following weekend of that same week.
So next, we will be listening to the next audio diary, which is, again, I think it's a precursor to your actual doing the job, but you are, I think, on Shetland, if I remember rightly. This podcast is copyrighted by Michelle Langthorne, and all rights are reserved.